So for the foodies in the room, which I think is most of us, Dan Simons has impacted your life. He's impacted your palate, and he has impacted your DMV dining experience. Dan is an inspirational leader, and I am really honored to also call him one of my friends, a dear friend. Dan is a co-owner and co-creator of the extremely popular and delicious Farmers Restaurant Group, which includes seven founding farmers. It's like a lot of Fs. It's a lot of Fs. 7 founding farmers restaurants in DC, Maryland, Virginia, and Pennsylvania, and Founding Spirits, which is the group's distillery. The company supports more than 1,500 employees and is still growing. And this growth includes the catering company, Founding Farmers Co. and Catering and Events. Founding Farmers Co. Catering and Events, which has supplied the delicious dishes for us tonight. In addition, Dan teaches at his alma mater, George Washington University, and also mentors and provides direct funding support to female and minority entrepreneurs. And if that wasn't enough, Dan has also started a nonprofit, Our Last Straw, which endeavors to save the planet by eliminating single-use plastic straws. Go to restaurants in DC, that's Dan. And in addition to trying to save the planet, Dan also wants to save the people on this planet, which is why he speaks so much about mental health publicly, and specifically mental health in the workplace. Okay, so that's pretty impressive, right? We can all agree. Yeah. But here's my favorite thing about Dan, right? He is so authentic. To give you a taste, I'm going to read you an excerpt from his company bio. And it's written in Dan's voice, so when I say I, it's Dan. Okay, I'm going to read the quote, okay? So, quote, "Most bios and resumes are wicked." Yeah, I'm from Boston. Wicked boring. I get the point that most people want to know what someone has accomplished, what they do now, and how they got to where they are. But here's the truth. It's usually just the highlight reel, which may have little to do with how they got to be who and where they are today. Most people aren't including the 7 months where they were jobless, the time they filed for unemployment benefits, the 3-year span they lived in their mother-in-law's basement, or when they opened their first restaurant, failed, lost all their money, felt lost, experienced self-doubt and depression, and teetered on the edge of bankruptcy. Yeah. So that's a chunk of my real bio. Yeah, like I said, authentic, right? So that's just a taste, and now we're gonna get the real thing. Please welcome Dan Simons to the stage.
Always have water. I don't expect to cry during this talk, but water, you never know. I might get a little choked up. Grace, thank you. Roy, fantastic. Conscious Capitalism, bravo. To bring us all together, pretty cool. Really what I'm excited about tonight, and the star of the show, is the conversation at the tables. So I'm gonna take 23 and a half minutes, and I'm gonna share some information that I hope is just nutrients for the soil, right? That really can help your conversations bloom, that really result in what matters, which is what we do tomorrow and what we do the next day. Probably if we added up all the employees that we affect in this room, we're at least 7,000, 10,000. I know several of you. So what we do matters, not just with our voice and not just with our thoughts, but with our policy, with our actions, with the things that we convey and do for our people. So that's what my mission is tonight, to just try to add some fuel to that. Let's do a quick survey. I think I know the answers, but I want to do it. The first survey I'm going to do is anonymous. So close your eyes. Go ahead, close your eyes. Keep your eyes closed. With your eyes remaining closed, if you have personally ever experienced a struggle with mental health, or if someone in your family has, while keeping your eyes closed, raise your hand. Okay, please put your hands down. Thank you. Open your eyes. Okay, now I have one more question. You can keep your eyes open. If you identify as human, raise your hand. Okay. So, I know, stunning. So here's the good news. We have a lot in common. We have the obvious stuff in common. We're human. And I did it anonymously, but I was looking at all of you. Trust me, we have a tremendous amount of common ground of either personally experiencing a mental health struggle or that someone we love has. So why is it hard to talk about? Really, right? It's not hard to say, yeah, I'm human. Like, you would never feel awkward about proclaiming your humanhood, right? And yet, there's this stigma or challenge or difficulty for some people in some situations to talk about their mental health. It doesn't need to be that way. And if we want it to change, it is up to us. And that is pretty compelling to me. And that's why we are here. So role modeling matters. And if we're human, and if talking about mental health is easy, and I figure we all got a list, so I'll tell you mine. Here's a few things to know about me. I think I had my first panic attack when I was 28. Got promoted into a big job, tons of pressure. I was psyched. Everybody said congrats. I was scared shitless. I was under-equipped for the promotion, and I didn't know what anxiety was, but I knew that if you got wicked chest pains and you thought you were gonna die, that you were having a heart attack, but apparently no, that was a panic attack. And so, okay, I've had panic attacks. I see a physical therapist because, like, my elbow hurts. I have a bunion on my right foot. It hurts. It hurts when I play pickleball. Physical therapy is good. I see a mental therapist. Mental therapy is really valuable. I have an eating disorder. I struggle with body dysmorphia, so I logically understand that when you look at me, you're not, like, repulsed by what I look like. And I wish it was as simple in my brain, because what I see sometimes, not all the times, but sometimes is very different than what I realize other people see. And those negative thoughts can be really overwhelming. Overwhelming, distracting. They can get in my way. They are a problem for me. And so mental therapy helps me with that. Interestingly, mental therapy, that now I'm going to feel insecure. Someone wants me to leave. And so, look, so what? We all have a list. My list can go on, and so can each of yours. Some of it we hide from other people. Some of it we're in denial about it to ourselves. But we don't need to be. We all have a list. Physical therapy, mental therapy, what's the difference? Mental health is just health. Wellness is just wellness. Why don't we work on it all? We're all human. Seems pretty logical and easy, but it isn't. And that's the work that we need to do. So you're all business people in one form or another. Let's talk numbers. If this was about your revenue or your stats, it might be good, but no, these are not good numbers. Here's a decade, right? Suicide skyrocketing. I know the media wants us to think we have a murder problem. We have a clear suicide problem, right? Like, wow, I thought the problem was murder. I mean, that's a problem. But when you look at the numbers and you think about it, wow, unbelievable. And I intentionally kept a data point here from pre-COVID. So when you look at this, just think about what these numbers are doing during COVID and post-COVID when we think about how many people are affected by mental health issues. And then think about who gets help and who has access. I hope when you think that 50% of the counties in America don't have a psychiatrist, you say, wait, holy shit, he's wrong. right? That's wrong? Does that have to be wrong? How can that be true? Well, it's not only true, but it's compounded by almost half of the psychologists that surveyed say, I'm overwhelmed. My practice is closed, I don't take new patients, or I'm personally overwhelmed, and thank God I know a therapist that I can go see because I feel like I can't help all the people I need to help. So numbers are important and role modeling is important, but I want to get even closer to the issue. So let me see if I can do a little role play for you. I brought some props. You know, if I showed up at work, we'll see if this conveys. You can hit that bell to tell me to get off the stage. But if I showed up at work, right, or on the court at practice, right, and you hadn't seen me for a couple weeks, and I walk in, and I got a knee brace on, and I'm like, you know, hobbling across the stage, you're like, oh, damn, what happened? You know, dude, what's up with the knee? And I'm like, oh, man, slipped walking the dog, tore my ACL. That's the kind of injuries guys like me get, Roy. But you know what? I'm good. I saw my ortho guy. I got a PRP injection, said no to the cortisone, got a second opinion, doing the rehab. My PT is dope. I'm good. Gonna have the procedure. Be back in no time. And you're like, yeah, that's cool. And the brace looks cool, right? And so I think we all know, we've all sort of experienced something like that. Feels pretty familiar and easy. And I think it's really different than if we walk into the office and you walk in and you see me and we're colleagues and you walk in and you look at me and you just see that I'm just down. And you're like, are you okay? And I say, no, I'm just, I don't even know, man. I'm just a mess right now. I'm just fucking sad and I don't know. I don't know what to do. And your reaction to that is not as easy as when I'm on the crutches, right? And maybe your reaction is sort of like, for some people, it's like, I hope you're okay, and sort of like back out slowly, right? Maybe it's a squeeze on the shoulder. But, you know, generally, people don't know what to do. And colleagues don't know what to do. Call HR. And so when I think about this and why aren't we good at it, you know, of course we're not good at it. There's no training. What's the playbook? What are you supposed to do? We learned how to address a physical issue, right? But we don't learn how to address a mental issue. And so, who's in charge of a population's mental wellness? Apparently no one, right? So when I look out at America, this is what I see. You know, if you're really mentally ill and it affects your behavior such that you break the law or you behave crazy, you'll get locked up, right? Imagine if cancer patients, because of their behavior from a symptom, if we put them in jail. You'd say, well, that's insane. Why would you put someone in jail because of their behavior from their symptoms from cancer? But we'll lock you up if you got mental issues. The send them to HR thing, I understand it, and I hope at the tables tonight you talk about this. It's one of the hurdles, and there are some lawyers in the room. You know, people are worried, oh, you can't talk about this. Send them to HR. We're worried. What's legal gonna say? Really? What's legal gonna say when they kill themselves? Right? So let's make sure that we challenge the stuff that holds us back. And like, how's the current playbook working? Not so well. Like if you're losing games all the time, you might want to do something a little different. We are losing the mental health game. So let's do something a little bit different. But you know, I think you see someone mentally ill on the corner and they're homeless and you think, oh, fuck, being homeless must, you know, that must really take a toll on your mind. It's not the homelessness that got them mentally ill. You have a job, you have a mental health crisis, but you don't have health insurance, and you have a company that has no idea what to do, and colleagues that aren't trained, so you lose your job, right? And then you can't pay your mortgage. And then you slip and you fall and you end up homeless. And now someone is like, that homeless dude is crazy. And actually, no, right? That homeless human used to be someone's colleague, but there's no playbook, there's no system, right? You could suffer in silence. Imagine if I tore my ACL and I wasn't allowed to use crutches, I couldn't see a doctor, and no pain meds. And I had to walk around and not tell anyone what was wrong. That would be ridiculous. Suffer in silence? It's not a good playbook, but this is what we do in families, in different cultures, in the workplace, right? Suffer in silence, deal with it, tough it out. I'll tell you, tough it out, terrible, terrible strategy. But we need to teach that. And of course, if you're in the 1% or 2%, or you're fortunate enough to have health care, have folks around you, and you have access to good mental health care, you're going to do great. The outcomes are stunning. You get a little bit of help. You get a lot of help. You get help for 8 weeks. You get help for 8 years. You get help forever. And you're good, right? It's not about fixing us, but it is just about getting better at being the person that you are. But we need a real playbook. We need a real solution. And I wonder, is it getting better out there? I mean, Roy, I am so grateful that you are willing to stand up here and share what you shared, because it's rare. We're starting to see more of it, and that's good. But should it be front page news when an Olympic athlete or a Miss Universe or a senator from Pennsylvania, it's like, I'm struggling with depression? Our work is not done until it's not news. It should be, no shit, everybody's struggling with something, right? The only news would be we're all working on it, and that's what we need to get to. Who are we going to rely on? The government? Nonprofits? We've got some of both of that in here. I'm grateful for your work. The work matters. The church? The family? Look, those entities, those institutions, it matters. Their work matters. But how's that going for us? So, this is why I say it's about us, the business leaders. We are the ones who can do this. And if we sit around and wait for one of these other institutions to solve this, it's just getting worse. The statistics are skyrocketing, right? So we, the business leaders, have to be the ones to get better. And why should it be us? For the capitalists in the room? Look, you don't even have to care about people. Matter of fact, you could be thinking, this guy's soft. Like you could just not give a shit about people. If all you want to do is make a lot of money, great. I have an idea for you. Invest in the mental wellness of your people, and you will generate fantastic returns. If you are a basketball coach, invest in the mental health of your players, you'll win more championships. Like, I can confidently say, without knowing anything about basketball and without knowing anything about all of your industries, if you want better performance, invest in the mental wellness of your people, right? It's straightforward. I'm getting fired up right now. I've never done this before, but I'm going to take a short commercial break. This is like a TV timeout for the sports fans. You didn't want it, you didn't ask for it, but I'm going to give it to you anyways, and it's good for you. So this short commercial break is for perimenopause and menopause. They need a voice. And the sponsor of this commercial break is just reality. So I happen to be a man. I won't experience it. I know very little about it. But I am sponsoring this commercial break because the words perimenopause and menopause should be able to roll off everybody's tongue. We should be able to talk about it like a torn ACL. We should be able to talk about it like me losing my hair. And again, for the capitalists in the room who just want to know the ROI and think this might be taboo or a hurdle, if I told you that something was going to affect 100% of 50% of your employees, guaranteed at some point, and for some of them, it's going to have an effect that could affect how they perform at work, wouldn't you say, yo, I need to know about that? Like, let's invest and, in solutions and support, and let's just level up performance, right? The commercial break is over. And now back to our program. So I was talking about financial motivations, right? I don't know about each of your companies and each of your organizations, but I know this. You all have a P&L. You are all responsible for financial results. You are all responsible for outcomes. So just think about missed days of work. Think about turnover and retention. Think about invisible lost productivity. Think about the value of losing an employee. Think about the value of one of your employees or your colleagues losing their life. Put a dollar figure on it. Go ahead. Insurance companies do, lawyers do, what's it worth if people like win money at the end of the claim, at the end of it, like people put money on all sorts of things, right? So if you just want to look at your business through a capitalist lens and you want to value your people and their wellness, do that. I can already tell you where you're going to come out. You're going to come out with a math equation that leads you to want to invest money in these initiatives, and you will get a return. The dollars make the case. The humans make the dollars. Thank you. Yeah, and can I tell you, I love that line, and so I like to repeat it, right? So the dollars make the case, the humans make the dollars. So what the are we doing not working on this all the time, right? I emphasize this because this is not a liberal issue. This is not a bleeding heart issue. This is not a save the whales issue, right? It can be those things. But when you make it about dollars and cents, it's bipartisan. It's everybody in the room. It's the human thing. Our computers, your little phones in your pocket, they run on an operating system. Every now and then, thanks to Apple, they auto-download a new patch. Something was wrong. My battery got too hot. My phone is glitching. I mean, if my kid's battery life isn't perfect, it is a huge problem. And then Apple downloads a patch, and then their phone operates better. We're no different, right? Here's Grace. She's lovely. Here's what I know about her. She's got a brain. She's human. It's got an operating system, and it's got some glitches. Lovely glitches, but glitches, right? We all have that. And so the awareness of this, if you ran a software company and you found out that your core product had a 15% slowdown in its processing, you'd put a bunch of debuggers and coders and programmers on there and say, hey, let's solve that slowdown. And this is my point, that when we see our workforce and our colleagues and ourselves through this lens, we just make it a productivity issue. So rather than leaving the money on the table, letting our people slip under the table, sometimes letting ourselves slip under the table, let's figure out how we make an impact. I want to make the point that while this is a work topic, this is not an HR topic. And this is why I like talking to CEOs and founders and directors and C-level folks that are in charge, or those who influence and train and coach and teach the big leaders. This is an operations playbook. We got to go from ideas to the strategies, and we got to figure out how we build the playbooks. What's the tactical plan? But it's got to come from the top down. Don't ask your HR director, right, to own this. And if you are an HR director or vice president or even a chief people officer, do not let this be your program, okay? Do not let this be your program. This is the CEO's program. This is the COO's program, and the CMO's program, and the CFO's program, and the chairman of the board's fucking program, right? This has got to be at the top and part of the strategy of the company. So playbooks need goals, right? Whatever the goal is, you should be able to write it down. If you run your company with objectives and key results, however you run your company, you got to have a goal. In my company, this is one of our goals, right? So have a goal, write it down, get a definition, and then build a playbook. We know that goals are only useful one time. They're useful to build the habits and the routines and the processes that we're going to do every single day that we believe will lead us to that outcome. You don't wake up and stare at your goal. You should wake up and stare at your process. And you should do your daily grind that leads to your results. So here's my playbook. I'll take you through it quickly. But I need more water. And I just share this with you because this is what we do in our company, and this is just sort of a nutshell of it. As a leader, tell your truth, right? On our agendas at work, we so often talk about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. Let's just also talk about how we're feeling. It's revenue, and it's sales, and it's collegiality, and it's wellness. And meet your people where they are and ask them where they are. It's not sit down and let's grind out this agenda. It's, let's start with a little check-in, right? Today might not be the right day to do the grind because your head's not in the right place. Great, let's punt this meeting till tomorrow. My head's not there. Bad management. It's like, cut off your left arm. Your elbow hurts. Cut your left arm off, leave it at the door. We don't want to talk about that shit at work. This thing of leave your problems at the door, and a lot of us were raised this way or taught this way or worked in companies this way or been coached this way. It's stupid. If you want the highest level of productivity, you ought to know where people are, how they're feeling. You hire the whole person. The whole person comes to work, right? And you want to grow and evolve and develop the whole person. We invest in a two-way anonymous communication system so that our employees can reach out to us and communicate anonymously. It's a really valuable tool. It's an app. We invest in an app. We provide free mental health care to our employees, text or video, and then they can level up to in-person. I've spent the money to have a psychologist on speed dial and a psychiatrist on speed dial, and those practitioners who can speak Spanish. Because if you can't get an appointment when you need an appointment, it can be a disaster, right? And we have to lower the barrier to getting access. You can't just put up a poster in the break room. You can share the poster, and you can teach your leaders and your line managers and your operators to talk about the poster. It's like, here's the 1-800 number for, crisis or suicide prevention. But what you really need to do is say, hey, I was walking by that poster today and I wondered, when's it going to be my day to call? Right? And start the conversation. So you can't just roll out the information. You got to share and engage with the information. You got to teach our people to see and notice, and then we need to teach our people of then what, right? So it's not just the culture of caring, it's the then what. And we got to measure it. How many people use the app? Those, what are they, EAPs that probably all of you have in your companies? If you wonder why they don't cost very much and the company can afford them, it's because nobody knows about them and nobody uses them. So they check the box, but that's bullshit, right? Go ask the question, what's our engagement? What's the use? Who's actually utilizing this slew of benefits we have? And get the engagement up. There's lots of starter kits, right? So I shared this one with folks. It's just, here's a little starter kit that I could share with my executive team. Let's look at these 5 things and think, okay, great. We're going to try to do this. Number 2 here is the willingness to smash the taboos, right? Someone stood up and said menopause. I had someone from the audience, a talk I was giving last year, and she came up to me afterwards and she said, I have never heard that word spoken in a business setting ever in my life, and there actually isn't anyone in my family, including my husband, that I've ever heard say the word. And she like gave me a hug. She's like, thank you so much. And like, it's so easy. Menopause. I thought about making everybody say it, but I didn't want to, push the envelope. But smash the taboos, and when the lawyers say, hey, there's a risk in this, and HR says, no, you can't talk about this, it's like, what about the risk of not talking about it? I am eager for companies to start getting sued for not providing the mental health support, right? And let's change the math calculus, but you don't have to wait for that, just do it. So what you see on your left, this is how I look at your workforce and my workforce if we don't have an intentional playbook. You've got a number of human beings. They've got glitches in their operating system. They don't know how to work on them. You don't know how to work on them. You got the same workforce. But on the right, hopefully I have my left and my rights correct. Yes. On your right, when you take your workforce, and they're humans, and you run an intentional mental health playbook, you don't cure people. There's still some glitches, but they get better at being them. It is a workforce multiplier. John, you've got 600 employees at Congressional Seafood, and I've seen how they work, and those jobs are hard. I see how you lead your people. And I know that because you care for them, and I saw their break room, and I watched them eating, and I saw the camaraderie while they're doing cold and dangerous and difficult jobs. But I saw the camaraderie. That's like a workforce of 900 instead of 600. Treat them the other way, they're like a workforce of 400, even though there's 600 bodies. Hopefully I'm making my case. What really matters is your conversations and what you do. So it's time for me to get out of the way and let the conversations be the star of the show.